Hello and welcome to another set of Blender training videos brought to you by 3DBuzz. Over the next several videos, we are going to be modeling out and texturing a very special project that hopefully at least one or two of you have seen before. And here is the subject we're going to be taking a look at. This is the Viper Mk VII, as shown in the sci-fi series Battlestar Galactica. Now, our goal here is to create a game-level model of this. We're not going to be reproducing a full TV production level model. We're going to do something a lot more gaming-centric, so I'll be aiming for about 3 to 5,000 polygons, give or take. And then when we're done, we'll go ahead and lay out the UVs for it, and we will get it textured. So the only other thing I really want to point out is that I have several different images that I will be using. These are all various reference images that I found with just a few quick Google searches. So if you look up Battlestar Galactica and Mk VII Viper and etc., you should be able to dig up all of these. Now, there were some cool ones that I came across that are not mine to redistribute, but I will kind of point them out here, is that if you poke around, you can find the actual production models with these nice clay render shots. It'll give you a really cool insight into how the ship itself was modeled for the TV show. So if you're looking at pushing this to the next level in terms of what the surface is doing, it's a great way to start. So you can see I've got a lot of different images here. Now I've already got a set of these that I have broken out into some usable reference images, and I'll be loading those up into Blender here in just a few moments, but I just kind of wanted to give you a quick rundown of some of the images that I'll be using to make sure I'm getting things at least mostly correct as we go through. Now, at the same time, again, I'm not making a TV quality model here, so there will be some simplifications, some design decisions to tone down things in order to keep our polygon counts nice and low. So please don't expect it to look quite as sharp as this, but we can get it looking really, really good. So I think with that, that's enough for us to actually get started. Again, I'm just kind of flipping through some of these images that I've found. Here's a great one of the actual model that was used on the TV show without any texturing on it whatsoever. So it can give you a really nice look at how the surface was generated, which if you've been modeling for a little while can be very, very useful. So with that, let me go ahead and slide this out of the way. Now here I am inside of Blender. And what I have done is I have simply started a brand new file with the factory defaults. In fact, I haven't even saved anything yet. So if you just say load factory defaults, you should be looking at pretty much the exact same thing that I am. So the first thing I'm going to do is jump under File and set up some of my preferred user settings. So let's see, underneath the interface, I like to switch on auto perspective. You'll see me making a lot of use of that as we jump between image planes so that I can just kind of rotate the view and make those image planes disappear. I find that extremely useful. Let's see, if I jump under input, I like using the Maya standard, but I don't often find myself messing too much with the actual presets. I'm not sure if that's just me or whatever, but I'm going to go ahead and select with left mouse. I'm going to set my orbit style to turntable instead of trackball. I'm going to switch on continuous grab because I find myself getting frustrated if I don't. Now, I don't particularly need any add-ons at the moment. I don't really need to worry about setting up the file system to jump us over to Photoshop at the moment. There is really only one more thing that I'd like to do, and that is to quickly set up the ability to kind of click off in space to deselect, because, well, I mean, I generally use that all the time in Blender, as I do in other 3D packages, and it's just not the norm in Blender. Generally, you're supposed to be hitting A to deselect everything. And that doesn't jive well with me, personally. Now, if you don't want to do this, of course, that's fine, but we're going to go under the 3D view, and we'll do this for object mode and mesh mode. If you wanted to do it for any of the other modes, of course, you know, you're welcome to do that. But if you take a look, you have the A key, and that's going to select or deselect all. I'm going to click Edit under object mode, and if we expand select or deselect all, you get object.select all as your command. Go ahead and just copy that. And this is just a shortcut, so you don't have to type anything out if you don't really want to. And then we can scroll all the way to the bottom, or just do it just a little bit faster. There we go. Or I could use middle mouse and drag. I'm going to click Add New, and then expand this, and underneath my command I'll hit Control-V to paste in object.select all. Now, when I press Enter, we get our little action which appears because Blender recognizes this command. We're going to set this to deselect, And instead of A, I'm just going to click right here once, then click again, so it's a left mouse click. We're going to take press and switch it to click. And really, that's all there is to it. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for our mesh as well. So we can go ahead and close this. I'll just middle mouse drag us back up here to the top. And I'll close this down. Let's expand mesh. Click edit. And we see the same thing. And it's really the same command. It's just mesh.selectAll. So we can just grab that and hit Control-C once again. And I'll quickly scroll down here to the bottom. Click add new, expand, paste. So we have mesh.selectAll. Press enter. Set the action to deselect. Set the button to the left mouse button, and then make sure you change press to click. And you're done here. So let's go ahead and click Save as Default. See, now I can just click out here in space to cancel out a selection. And it also works inside of edit mode. So if I hit Tab, let's hit Control Tab and V to select vertices. I can grab a vertex, I can hold down Shift and grab another vertex, or I can click out here in space to deselect all of my vertices, which is extremely useful. Okay, so that's the basis of my setup. I completely reserve the right while we're working to go like, oh yeah, there's another setting, and I'll jump back in there and change that as well. But those are the big ones that come to mind immediately as soon as I jump into anybody else's installation of Blender that's not mine. Now, the only other thing I want to do is get our image planes all set up. Now, I've already got these set up. I've measured them out inside of Photoshop, so they should line up fairly easily. But let's go ahead and get these inserted. So we'll go under Background Images, and I'll expand this. We'll go ahead and switch on Background Images. That'll be useful. Click on Add Image, and currently it says Not Set. Well, let's expand that out. We'll click on the Open button, and in my case, underneath Z Drive, I have some Viper images, and I've got a few of these. I have bottom, front, left, rear, and top. Well, let's start with the left image. So we'll double-click that. Now, I don't want this to be visible in all views. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and switch over to the left orthographic view. So to do that, I'm going to hit Control and 3 on the numpad, which switches us over to left. We'll take our axis and make sure we set that to left as well. That way, if I switch to any other view, including like a right ortho, we don't actually see it. We only see it on the left, which is exactly what we want. Other than that, this can stay right where it is. We're good with that. I can zoom in, I can hit Z to go into wireframe view, and you can see that's lined up pretty nicely. Notice I'm also utilizing the 50% opacity that comes in by default, just to make sure that my lines are nice and easy to see. Because if this is set all the way up to 1, it's arguably a little harder to see your wireframe. I just kind of like that 50% opacity. It's nice and clean. So we'll go ahead and leave that. Actually, let me just punch it in so I don't have to try to drag out a perfect 0.5 because I'm no good at that. All right, now let's add another image. And this is also currently not set. Same thing that we did before. Jump over to the Z drive. And let's go over to Blender, Viper Images, and let's bring in the top now. Now, obviously, we don't want this to be visible from every single view, so we'll go under All Views and click on Top. And just a really quick thing, because this bites me all the time with this particular menu, I keep wanting to kind of move diagonally toward what I'm looking at. So if like I see the word top over there listed under Z-axis, and my mouse wants to instinctively just kind of move diagonally up and to the left, and you'll see the menu disappears. Make sure you go straight up into the menu, and then you can move over. If you're like me and you want to take the shortest path between two different points on your screen, you may end up with the menu just magically disappearing when you try to click on something. I just thought I'd bring it up. Okay, so top is associated with the top view. We can hit 7 on our numpad, and that takes us right there, which is perfect. Now, you will see that auto perspective kicking in. As soon as I navigate away, everything disappears, and we're back in perspective land, which is exactly what I want. Now, I want to take a moment and go ahead and get the top view aligned with the left view. Now, you'll notice how this is working already. If I hit Control 3 on the numpad, take us to the left view. Notice the direction that the y-axis is pointing. It's pointing toward the front of our ship. If I hit 7, it's still pointed to the front of our ship, which is just kind of giving you an idea of why everything is oriented the way that it is. Now, to get things lined up appropriately, I'm going to hit Tab. Let's go into, well, there's a couple things we can do here, but let me just make sure we're selecting vertices. So Control Tab V, I'm going to hit B and drag out a marquee selection box across these front vertices, which I'm just going to drag up to the front. And very carefully, by zooming in, I'm going to place these right on the nose. Now you notice the pixels get a little blurred there on the image, and it's not absolutely critical that it be, you know, right down to the absolute pixel perfect. This is an approximation, this whole thing of modeling. So no worries there. Let's click out here in space to deselect. Again, I can do that because of the command we set up earlier. Let's hit B and drag out these pixels down here on the bottom, and we'll pull these down toward the back of the ship. So I'll zoom in, like so, get really close, and then I'm going to put these right against that little piece of fairing or what have you. So we have the length defined like so. Now with that done, I can hit Tab to get out of here. You can see how that box nicely defines the length of our ship. We can hit Control and 3 on the numpad, and obviously we have a little bit of a problem in that our ship is pretty small, at least in this view. Now, originally, my goal was to make sure that I was going to be lining everything up to the left view, but because I've already arranged everything for the top view, it's probably going to be better for me to instead make sure that I line everything up in the other direction. So let me go ahead and I'll just take my left view and we'll make that a little bigger. So I'll just take my size and boost that up like so. And even just by increasing the size, I can get it really close. Now, if you take a look, the line here at the back of our little box is hitting right at the edge of the fairing, and it's hitting right at the nose here, but it just feels a little bit off. So I'm going to start incrementing by very, very small amounts. So 8.35. Ooh, that's probably right where I want to be, but I'm going to pull it down just a little bit. I'm getting nitpicky, but that's my prerogative. 3.4. Let's try 3.3. And that took a second to hit. 0.33. Total user error. Okay, that's actually looking pretty good. I am going to do this though. Let's hit Tab. Let me make sure I deselect everything. I'm going to hit B and drag out a marquee selection box across these top vertices. And I'm just going to pull this up. Not necessarily to the very top just yet, but I just want to make sure that this back line is long enough to get to the edge of that fairing. Also, that reminds me that there is one more little user preference that I want to set up, and that is zoom to mouse position. I really dig that one. Auto depth is okay, and rotate around selection is cool for the first 5 minutes, but zoom to mouse position has really saved me, so now I can just kind of come back here. And that's really close to the edge. It may be off by like half a pixel, but not enough for me to really stress over. And that's really close there. So I'm actually just fine with that positioning. So that takes care of our left and our top. Okay, so let's add on another image. So let's click Add, come down, take our little not set, and we'll click on Open. And we'll click on Z, Blender, Viper Images. Now we've added the left, we've added the top. Let's go ahead and drop on the bottom now. And obviously we need to make sure this is associated with the proper view, so we'll take our axis, again move the mouse up at first, and we'll set this to bottom. And then to make sure that everything is where it needs to be, we will hit Control 7, not just 7. And this seems to be lining up pretty well. And if you find yourself kind of freaking out just a little bit, thinking, wait a minute, it's pointed in the wrong direction, just keep in mind that y-axis is still pointed toward the front of the craft, which is exactly what you want. Now, this does look like it could be slid upward just a little bit, and the reason I say that is if we come over here, our fairing is actually a few pixels back, that little blue stripe we were laying that up against. So let's arrange this a little bit. We're going to adjust our Y. Now, those 0.1 increments are pretty severe, so come over here, and I can hold down Shift and get smaller increments, and that looks pretty good, but now we need to check the front as well. If you hear a little bit of thunder in the background, it's just because there's a little bit of a storm going on. I apologize for that, but, you know, it is the weather and all. So, let's see, 0.4, let me split that in half to about 0.2. And then let's try to size this up. So we don't want to size it up much. Let's do 5.05 and just see where that gets us. So, ooh, that may be too big. That may be way too big. So, yeah, we're going to have to get smaller. So, let's see, 0.505, is that Okay, that's where it was. It just didn't say there. Oh, I was changing the opacity. That's great. You can have a laugh at my expense now. All right, let's cut that down to 0.25. That looks nice. That's pretty close. I'm digging it. So let's zoom out, come in here to the front, and I think that'll work. So now we can hit 7, and Control 7, and we're looking pretty good. All right. All right, this opens the door for another image, so let's go back up here to the top, click on Add Image, and I'm going to start crushing these down. We don't really need the left view open anymore. We don't need the top view open. We don't need the bottom either. So now let's expand not set, click on the Open button, and we'll grab Z, and open up Blender, Viper Images. We've got the left, we've got the top, we've got the bottom. We need the front and the rear. Let's do the front first. And we'll scroll down. And we want to make sure that this does get associated with the front view. And there's something kind of interesting about doing this that I'd like to point out to you. So let's switch this over to the front, and then let's take a look at the front view. So here we are in the front. Everything is looking great. But there's something kind of interesting going on that you should probably know about. Let's grab the front of our ship in terms of our axes. Do you remember that we had the y-axis pointed toward the front of our ship? I can confirm it if we switch over to our left view, and you can see the y-axis is indeed pointing forward. So what I'm going to do is grab our box. Let's hit Tab to go into edit mode. Let's grab these front vertices. So I'm going to hit V and drag out a marquee selection box right here at the front, and then I'm going to hit S and scale these down. Then I'm just going to slide them down a little bit. So we're tapering the entire box for just a moment, turning it into kind of this wedge shape. Now here's why I'm doing that. If I hit Tab and hit 7 to go up to the top, everything's still lining up very nicely. If I hit Control 7, you can see things are still lining up nicely. Now if I switch over to the front view, this is where things get just a little bit interesting. If I hit Z to get out of wireframe mode and actually show the thing shaded, we don't actually see the front of our little cone box shape, do we? If I hit Control 1 to show the back, now we see the front. So the front and the back are, well, the way that you would think about them are reversed. If you'd be actually looking toward the direction of the front and not at the actual front of the object. What does this mean to us? This means we need to reverse which images are shown where. What we're going to do is take our front image and we're going to associate that with the back camera. So now if I hit Control, boom, that's going to flip around. So in essence, when we're modeling, we'll be ignoring whatever it says in the upper left corner of the view. We're just going to pay attention to what we see, which is generally going to be a much safer bet anyhow. Now, with that done, let's pick which axis we're going to be aligning everything to. As of right now, the important axis that we have for figuring out where the top and bottom of our ship is going to be placed is the left view. That's the only other one we have established. So let's go back into wireframe with the Z key. Let me hit Control 3 to stay in this view. And we'll zoom out a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do is create another object. That whole tapering thing was very cool, but it was really just there to kind of show us sort of where we should be putting that image for the front and the back. However, it does make things a little bit interesting for figuring out where the top and bottom of our ship are going to be. So let's go under Add, and I'll bring in a new mesh, and we'll just make another cube. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to nuke out this cube. Just to keep things simple. I wouldn't necessarily do this on, if I was just working completely on my own, but just to make sure everybody gets the exact same thing I do, I'm going to take a few additional painstaking steps. Painstaking. So let's hit Tab, Control, Tab, and grab vertices. I'm going to click out here in space, hit B. I'm going to grab these verts here at the front and slide them forward. And I'm going to zoom in really close and put them like right there in that shaded gray fading out pixel. Same thing back here. Click out in space, hit B, drag out a selection box back here. Pull way back. Now I can't see exactly where that should go without bringing this up, but this is where it gets kind of cool, because what I'm going to do is click out in space again, hit B once more, and I'm going to grab all the vertices here at the top, and I'm going to place them such that they are sitting right on top of this guy here. And I can just drag with the mouse. Now, in this dragging operation, I'm moving in all three axes, and I don't, well, two axes anyway, and I don't necessarily want to do that. So I'm going to tap the Z key, so now I'm only moving along Z, And I'm just going to place that right on top, like so. And as soon as I'm done, just get that very happy and click, and we're good to go. With a little more thunder, just for dramatic effect. Now, let's click out in space to deselect. Let's hit B once more, and we will drag outward, like so. And we'll do the same thing. We're just going to zoom in, and I'll just drag down with the Z manipulator, and we'll put that right against the bottom. See, now, if we switch over to our back view, we can see where this image is off. Well, we can see most of where this image is off. There's still some issues we could clean up, and we're going to do that by going into the front view. I'm going to click out here in space, and I'm going to make this box as wide as our entire ship. And there's a couple of different ways I could do that. What I'm going to do is just hit A to grab everybody. I'm going to hit S to scale, and then I'm going to hit X to scale only in the X-axis. And I'll just drag this out until those edges are right there on the edges of our ship. And then I'll zoom in, get really close. I'll do it again, S and X, and then I can just kind of nudge right to perfection. Boom, looking good. Also a good idea to check the other side. Very, very close. I mean, if it's off by like 1/8 of a pixel, which is not enough to concern me. Now we can switch over to our back view, and we can see the box that we need to fit this front image into. So I'm going to hit Tab to get out of object mode. Let me hit Control 1 on the numpad to get us back in there. Now, on our front view, we need to move this up. So let's start off by dragging upward, like so. It looks like if we wanted to, we could actually scoot the thing a little bit, but I think it might be more prudent to consider scaling it very slightly, actually make the image just a little bit bigger. So let's try, for starters, push this up to 0.1, or actually just 1 flat. And that seems to be really close. Yeah, we are going to have to scale this up very slightly. So let's go 5.1, might be a little much. So let's go with 5.05. That looks pretty good. I am looking for a bit of a snug fit. Also, if you can't get these to line up right down to the pixel, please do not fret, because part of your job as a modeler is going to be to make those assumptions, to just kind of fix that sort of stuff and work around it. It's very rare that you will ever get a chance to work from schematics that line up as perfectly as these do, which is one of the reasons why I selected this for our first major modeling project, because you can get these images and they include... Well, they are of orthographic shots from the actual TV model, so everything lines up, well, more cleanly than it really should. So let's excuse me, let's set this back over to 1, and that nudges that down. We may have to, as I said, kind of find a little healthy balance. Let's try 1.05, and that I think looks pretty good. So it's pretty much centered. There's a little bit of overlappage. I think I can actually get away with scooting the thing slightly to the left. So let's say negative 0.05. Oh, that's too far. So click again, negative 0.025, so half that. And that's getting pretty close. We have this dark line right here inside of all the grading that looks like it'd make a nice center line. So we kind of want to get that right down the center axis. So negative 0.015. That looks really good. That's probably exactly what we want. And that's overlapping just a little on each side, which I'm okay with. That is just about to the top. We could probably nudge it up a little, but this is, I think we're just going to go with it just like it is. I think that's going to work out just fine. So that only leaves us bringing in the final image. So we'll click Add Image one more time. We'll expand. Click on Open. Go to Z Drive, Blender, Viper Images, and let's do the rear. Now, just as we had to kind of flip this around with our front camera, we're going to flip it around again here for the rear. So we're going to take the back image, the rear image, and that's actually going to be seen from the front view. So now, if we hit 1, really all we have to do now is just make sure that this picture lines up inside that box relatively cleanly. So let's start off by sliding this up in Y. And that's really close, but let's try to just steal some of our numbers here and just see how well they work out. So if we take our size and set it to 5.050, not the opacity. It's the second time I've done that, by the way, for those who are interested. That looks pretty good, I think. Now our Y is 1.05, so 1.05, not 10.5, 1.05. That also looks pretty nice. And let's nudge it over slightly as well, so negative 0.015. And I think that lines up very nicely. So now we can rotate around, and let's just check all of our different angles out. So there's our rear view, here's our front view. We get nothing from the right view, but if we go to the left, we can see this, which is lining up very nicely. This will be one of our primary views for making sure everything is lining up. And 7, things are also lining up very nicely here. Control 7, and lining up very nicely here. So with that done, all we have really left to do in terms of being completely ready to begin our modeling project is just simply go under File and save this out. And I'm going to jump under Blender into Blend Files, and we're going to call this Mark 7 underscore Viper underscore 1. And there we go. So we'll go ahead and click on Save Blender File. And with that, we are ready to begin the modeling process. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this video so it gives you a nice introduction to where we're headed. We've got our image planes all set up. We've got at least the bulk of our user preferences all established. And in the next video, we will begin modeling out our ship. Thanks a lot for watching.